So we're continuing from where we left off with the mysteries of the silent brotherhood of the East. This is chapter 13, dealing with Yahshua's holy answer to Lamas. Now, after they had dined, the guest and Yahshua all were in a spacious hall in Mary's home. And Lamas said, "Pray, tell us, Yahshua, is this the dawn of peace? Have we come forth? Have we come forth unto the time when men will war no more? Are you indeed the Prince of Peace that holy men have said will come?" And Yahshua said, "Peace reigns today. It is the peace of death. A stagnant pool abides in peace." Right? A stagnant pool, no waves. When waters cease to move, they soon are laden with the seeds of death. Corruption dwells in every drop. The living waters also leap and skip about like lambs in spring. The nations are corrupt. They sleep within the arms of death, and they must be aroused before it is too late. In life, we find antagonists at work. Allah sent me here to stir unto its depths the water of the sea of life. Peace follows strife. And if anybody doesn't know what strife is, that's conflict or crash, a clash. I come to slay this piece of earth. The Prince of Peace must first be the Prince of Strife. This leaven of truth, which I have brought to men, will stir the demons up, and nations, cities, families will be at peace with themselves. The five that have been dwelling in a home in peace will be divided not, and two shall war against three. The son will stand against his sire. The mother and daughter will contend. Yeah, strife will reign in every home. Then self and greed and doubt will rage into a fever heat. And then, because of me, the earth will be baptized in human blood. But right is king. And when the smoke is cleared away, the nations will learn war no more. The Prince of Peace will come to reign. Behold, the signs of what are in the sky, but men cannot see. But men can see them not. But men behold, a cloud rise in the west. They say a shower of rain will come, and so it does. And when the wind blows from the south, they say the weather will be hot, and it is so. Lo, men can read signs of the earth and sky, right? So that's what the forecast based on looking at signs. But they cannot discern the signs of the holy breath. So a holy breath, that terminology would be synonymous with truth. Now, that's number 50. What other name? I know it's kind of sideways, but number 50, what other name do we give to truth? Holy breath. Holy breath, right? So let's go back and put everything in context. Holy breath. So lo, man can read the signs of earth and sky, but they cannot discern the signs of the holy breath or the signs of the truth. But you shall know. The storms of wrath come on. The carnal man will seek a cause to hate you into court and cast you into prison cells. The carnal man will seek to cause to hail you into court, to cast you into prison cells. That reminds me of Misery Loves Company. You know, the cliche line of, they want to try to have you stoop to their level, quote unquote. These are what all these things remind me of. And when these times shall come, let wisdom guide. Do not resent. So don't have resentment for somebody. Don't let it get to that point. Resentment makes more strong the wrath of evil men. There is a little sense of justice and of mercy in the vilest men of earth. By taking heed to what you do and say, and trusting in the guidance of the holy breath, or in the guidance of the truth, you may inspire this sense to grow. You thus may make the wrath of men to praise Allah. And Yahshua went his way and came into Bishara and taught. Stagnant pools. Stagnant pools abides in peace. Then it goes to say corruption dwells in every drop. To be stagnant would be corrupt. And to be stagnant means you're not moving. You're not thinking. You're not plotting and planning. You're not manifesting.
And that took me to that whole saying, what is it? The idle mind is the devil's playground.
Mm-hmm. Idle.
Yeah.
No focus or not being focused, yeah, that's all in that space. But that's the whole point of going through these things, these lessons, because it's so much other stuff in the world going on to take you to that type of space where it's imperative that we create these portals, these jurisdictions, and these force fields of like-minded people. Yeah, to keep this stuff in our close subconscious and conscious mind of when we're making decisions on all type of levels as we go through our day to day. Anybody had any thoughts on this chapter?
Islam. I pretty much just agree with what you're saying, like around 6, that area, like that hit me hard, like, because peace can come in many forms. It doesn't mean that it's peaceful activity being done in that space, So yeah, like you said, even though it's water, it's corrupt activity being done in the water, under the water. And the only way to stop that is to start moving and stop the stopping, basically. So you have to stop going against yourself, basically, is what they're saying. Go against the flow of yourself, because that's what builds the dams that clog up, So
Yeah.
you got to find peace within too, but make sure that it's a flow so it's not corrupt.
Right.
So he was saying, like, it sounded to me like he was saying, you're trying to call me out like I'm the only source of peace around here. Like I'm supposed to bring it, like I'm supposed to satisfy it for everybody. But look at the peace over there. Is that satisfying it? Look at the peace over there. Is that satisfying it?
Right.
It's like he's shooting shots of words. I like it.
Right.
And then I think it was 16 or 17, somewhere around there. Well, it's a couple of them, 15, 16, 17. Basically, he's still going in about the peace. And can you scroll up a little bit? Sorry, the other way down. Yeah.
Yeah.
Islam.
Oh yes, like when he's talking about the clouds and the signs in the sky and like all this obvious stuff that anybody could see, but it's not like when you hit it back with the what's it called, the breath, the holy breath. Yeah. So yeah, basically that again too. It's easy to see all this stuff that doesn't matter, but the truth, everybody blind to.
Right. And that's like a selective, isn't it? Isn't that selective?
Yep.
Yep. Picking and choosing what truth you want to see.
Yep.
Man. Anybody else have any thoughts for our transition? The astral diagnosis? That's funny. All right, so picking up when we left off with Astral Diagnosis by Max Wendell. We are now making our way down here, dealing with the sex. We're dealing with a patient, female born November 24th, 1909. Hour of birth, not known. So we will here illustrate how it is possible to diagnose a disease correctly from a flat figure. It is, however, impossible to predict the exact time of crisis or to judge the strength of the will of the patient for those with common or mutable signs on the ascendant, sometimes because hopeless invalids and planetary aspects are also weak, while with a fixed signs on the angles, especially the vital sun sign Leo ascending, even if the planets are weak, will often, through the determination and willpower of the fixed signs, overcome adverse conditions. The Taurians, however, although under a fixed sign, sometimes allow fear to throw them into a chronic condition of ill health, which, with the fixed and stolen nature of this sign, it is very difficult to overcome. In this lesson, we shall deal largely with ductless glands. So ductless glands, when you look that up, now I'm going to list off a name of glands that are under the category of ductless, but ductless in itself is dealing with not having to have a duct or a channel or a bridge. Like a secretion can happen and it'll go directly into the blood. There's no tubes or things of that nature necessary to pass things on. And those ducts are like, they're in our body. We have ducts in our body. But these are ductless glands. And here is a list of some of the ductless glands. Pineal is a ductless gland, the thymus gland, the pituitary gland, the thyroid gland, the adrenal, and the spleen. These are all examples of ductless glands. So I'll continue reading. In this lesson, we shall deal largely with ductless glands, upon which science has spent so much time through it, though it has been unable to arrive at a full understanding of these little organs. We will deal particularly with the thyroid gland, which is under the rule of Mercury. So the thyroid gland is under the rule of Mercury, and in which science is greatly interested. The thyroid gland of goats and monkeys, having been grafted into men to rejuvenate them, in the above horoscope, we find Saturn, the planet of obstruction and crystallization. So Saturn is the planet of obstruction and crystallization and ruler of the femogastric nerve. That's interesting. When you think of crystallization, you think of, coming into the physical, becoming solid, things of that nature. Ali Khan, Islam. So when you think of Saturn, think of obstruction and crystallization. In conjunction with the moon, which rules the uterus, the moon rules the uterus, ovaries, and sympathetic nervous system. Now, all these are classified as ductless glands. So the pineal is a ductless gland, right? It's one of our favorite glands that Moors like to talk about, right? The pineal gland, that's the ductless gland, right? Venus, the planet ruling the sign of Taurus, the throat, also rules the thymus gland, another ductless gland, the organ through which the child receives the parental blood necessary to build the body. So the throat is used to pass on parental blood necessary to build the body. Oh no, the thymus gland, I'm sorry. The thymus gland, the organ through which the child receives the parental blood necessary to build the body. The thymus gland. This gland has especially to do with the development of the reproductive organs. So we're talking about, remember the title of this chapter is sex. At puberty, so I'm bringing that up because we're talking about reproductive organs. At puberty, the thymus gland atrophies, and this work is then continued by the pituitary body or the pituitary gland, which is also a ductless gland, ruled by Uranus. And once again, a ductless gland, distinguished from any other gland, is it's a gland that it doesn't need a duct, which is a bridge or anything, any assistance to travel to where it needs to get to. It's just a secretion can happen and it's directly released into the bloodstream with no ducts, no bridges.
Islam, that's also what makes them organs instead of just being glands. The fact that they can produce their own fluids, secretion.
Islam. This gland has especially to do with the development of the reproductive organs. At puberty, the thymus gland atrophies, and this work is then continued by the pituitary gland ruled by Uranus, which is the higher octave of Venus. In this girl's horoscope, we find the planets Venus and Uranus in conjunction, square to Saturn and the moon, and in opposition to the planet Neptune, which has rule over the pineal gland, and which is the higher octave of Mercury. Once again, pineal gland, ductless gland. Scientists have observed that the pineal gland has some connection with the mind. Dr. J.S. Langford stated in the New York Medical Journal some time ago that the pineal gland, which is at the base of the brain, is a partly glandular and partly nervous structure, and is known to be in the center of all sensation and emotion. At the same time, it rules and directs all the activities of the whole system of the ductless glands. So the pineal gland is the ruler of, or the controller of all the other ductless glands. It's the head ductless gland and the vegetative nervous system, thereby governing all the functions of organic life. All the functions of organic life. It also serves as a communicating center between the brain and other organs. This is the pineal gland that we're speaking of. Now, where we find the planets which have rule over the nervous system and the brain in square in opposition, what can we expect that the abuse of one kind or another will cause bodily disturbance? In the case of this young girl, whose guardians called upon our healing department for help, she had for some years been afflicted with the secret sex habit, of which the guardians were unaware until apprised through our diagnosis. The venous circulation is obstructed. The venous circulation is obstructed by the conjunction of Venus and Uranus. The latter planet, according to the Message of the Stars, page 573, quote, is responsible for the strange and abnormal growths which produce freaks of nature. The thymus gland, in this case, has an abnormal growth caused by the conjunction of Venus and Uranus, which created too much blood for the development of the generative organs in childhood. This, in turn, created a disturbance in the parts of the body ruled by this gland. We are told by the doctors that the pineal gland under Neptune rules and directs all the ductless glands. Max Hindell has been alone in his claim that Neptune is the higher octave of Mercury, the latter planet having a rule over the thyroid gland. Other astrologers have claimed that Neptune is the higher octave of Venus, but science corroborates our contention that the pineal gland has rule over the mentality. The Cosmoconception states that this was at first an organ of sensation and orientation, and that when it began to withdraw into the head, the division of the sexes began to take place and the brain and larynx were developed. That's fire. So the pineal gland caused evolution to happen. That's fire. Dr. Langford further states that the large amount of sugar consumed by humanity overdevelops and overstimulates the pineal gland. Pretty straightforward. That makes sense. The truth of this has been shown in our experience with cases in which Neptune was afflicted and especially where the afflictions were such that the patient had to overcome unnatural sex desires. These patients invariably were heavy sugar eaters. Sugar in excess, as well as liquor, is a false stimulant and excites the ductless glands. So sugar in excess. So liquor on its own is a false. So liquor off top, false stimulant. Sugar is not a false stimulant until it's used in it excessively, which, when overstimulated, are responsible for sex degeneracy. This young girl, by years of abuse, had dissipated the vital fluids that were necessary to help build the brain. That makes sense because when you don't secrete that, those fluids go to your brain. It goes up your back into your brain. So it went out the other way, and she was deficient of brain food. That's wild. She dissipated her vital fluids that were necessary to help build her brain because she was a sex degenerate. It came out the other way versus traveling the back. That's crazy. I never heard it just like this. This is wild right here. The doctor could not find the cause. No, let me go back up. And then now that's where it's at. No. Okay, no, I was right. The doctors could not find the cause and wished to remove the tonsils. When there is an abnormal exercise of the sex function or unexpressed, unnatural desires, the throat and especially the tonsils and the larynx are often enlarged and swollen. And keep in mind, we've been reading that that's the opposite. So we're dealing with throat and genitals. We're dealing with Taurus, Scorpio. You know, so these are just opposites. And I think a couple chapters, or maybe even last chapter, somebody tampered with their tonsils and had issues in their genital areas. And then I think earlier, it was vice versa. Oh, what a pity that all surgeons and the doctors of all schools do not have a knowledge of diagnosis by the wonderful science of astrology to combine with their own science in order to help a case such as the one under consideration. It is first necessary to remove the cause, which is to help this poor girl overcome her unnatural desires. The diet must be changed. That's the recurring theme, that diet. All highly seasoned foods, condiments, eggs, and especially sugar must be eliminated. And the vegetables which contain elements that work directly upon the nervous system should be used, such as celery, onions, parsley, lettuce, etc. That sounds like my lentil soup I just whipped up earlier. This body should be kept clean by bathing and dry rubbing and plenty of exercise, and the fresh air and sunshine should be taken. It will be difficult at the girl's present age to build up the brain, which is very underdeveloped. Young people who have dissipated their vital fluids between the ages of 7 and 14, when the creative force should be used for the development of the brain, will seldom be very bright mentally. The physical body, however, can be built up. And if the habit is overcome before the age of 21, there is a hope that by careful living, the brain can be developed, giving an average mentality. Gonorrhea coming up next. That sounds interesting. So I want to open the floor. How y'all feel about this chapter right here? This is pretty interesting. Pretty interesting chapter. Anybody got any thoughts on this chapter?
Islam. I don't know. I just really like how they keep repeating certain things, hitting certain things because of how important they are, especially the diet. Because basically that's a reflection of your mentality and your emotions and your spirituality. So like you said, if you are having an imbalance where you doing something too much, even a physical activity could be based on diet. You know what I'm saying? So she was going overboard thinking that was normal for her, probably, you know. Until this affliction showed up, did it become like even her parents and her guardians. So yeah, there's a lot of things that go on behind the doors, but you can at least help with the food and that kind of thing, because you don't know you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, so at least we could do.
Yep.
Islam. There's one thing I kind of noticed with the underlying theme is that I'm becoming more and more aware of the depth of astrology and the cosmos, and how the planets in our body are intertwined, similarly to how people say how music works on a harmonic scale, or sacred numbers of like counting or calculations. And I'm starting to see like a Venn diagram between systems, and being aware of our own system, of our body and our diet, in tandem with the planets and salts and the ductless glands. So I think that's kind of a neat overlap in like inner mechanic of our development.
Yeah, definitely necessary. And this is more science as well. You know, you're taking a scientific approach with everything in your life. And it's all, you know, one door going to always take you to another door, because we're never done learning. But the more information you digest in different areas, it's going to take you to a level. It's going to wake up your intellectual faculties, and you never know what your thought process will be after you start. After the stuff we be reading becomes second nature, your whole actions and intent just changes. Like it's gonna make you want to start eating different. Just in general, just hearing this type of stuff. And we know it's different cures. Like once again, outside these traditional pills and all that stuff we see, it's definitely another option. Anybody any other thoughts on this chapter? So let me stop the recording. Go into this.